Hey everyone, this is Jake, and today in this video we are going to be talking about another developer notes. In this developer notes, they are focusing more on the balance related things, so it's not really future updates, but talking more about the balance problems as well as kind of nerf details and such. So let's jump into the video and read through this developer notes. So first thing is first, it's about the Goliath's kind of balance changes. But basically, long story short, they're nerfing the units. That will happen next week's update, March 22nd, and they are going to nerf it, and they're going to do recall for the 4 weeks, so you can trade in for the other units and get the materials back for what you spent on the units. And they go far as mentioning the problem with the Goliath. They initially made the units to kind of counter the tower units, so it was supposed to be anti-tower units, but they gave additional like survivability and other stats with their basic attacks and such to make it really strong against pretty much any other decks out there. So if it was just anti-tower units, I don't think people would have much of a problem. It's just the fact that not only destroys the tower units, but it destroys all other units on the way as well. So it was not a fun experience to trying to fight against this thing. So basically, they are nerfing their basic attacks by 50%, and they're also nerfing his HP as well as defense by 60%. And the next section, they talk about the new SSR counter unit Rafaela, and she is also very strong units right now, both in PvE and PvP. And they are planning to nerf that. And if this nerf changes happens, I feel like she's going to be really weak units, because the main thing that makes her pretty strong right now is it's like the damage cap things what the defender has. She has that. It's only 2% instead of like 10% like awakening defenders and such. So we'll see what kind of additional thing that will give her, but if they just remove the damage cap thing, I think she'll just become really squishy units and not really viable both in PvE and PvP. So she might be the first counter unit that's really terrible. So we'll see how things will turn out, but for this one, I'm not really that hopeful that she'll become useful units unless they give her something new in return. Then it's more of the rework, not really a nerf, so we'll see how things will turn out. And next part, they talk about the rearm units, and I think rearm units in very tricky spot right now, just as they said within this developer notes. They are not really calling a nerf right now, and it's more like they can't really nerf it because there's a huge investment into rearm units. And to recall that, it's going to be very complex, a lot of investment, not just the character, but the equipment itself as well. And there's going to be multiple people who invest into the character to duplicate for danger close or some other contents. So to nerf the character like that is going to be a huge challenge, and I don't think it's really something they can just do it right now. The best, I think, option they have, and I listen to a lot of the community has to say as well, is probably trying to nerf is a PvP usage. The main solution they can come with, like the nerf, like a reasonable nerf they can do, is I think increasing the value of the leader skill just for PvP. Meaning, if you look at the Estarossa rearm, she is really good with the leader skill because she is really tanky units for her costs without the leader skill, but along with the leader skill, she gets this nice invincible buff to tank the damage for a couple seconds, and if enemies don't have a Syrian crew or don't trigger at the right time, it's going to be really hard on enemies. Now, Estarossa without the leader skill, her value drops a lot. She is still pretty tanky units, but enemies going to have a strong DPS, and if she gets melted, she can't really do much about it. So in that sense, I think Estarossa is pretty balanced in rearm units because her leader skill value is pretty big, and you have to use her as a leader to get the full potential out of her. If they make units like Orca, which is a really strong unit on PvP and PvE right now, if they made it so her passive like healing stuff goes to like a leader skill, so only if you set her as a leader it will work with the gauntlet, and it will drop the value of the units quite a lot. Now, that's a huge nerf as well, so they're gonna have to kind of give something back. But me personally, I think if they were to do something kind of like balance changes like that for gauntlet only for the rearm units, I'm fine with it. As long as they don't really go down to PvE routes as well, I don't feel too bad about getting characters getting nerfed, because I think some of the units right now definitely have really high value for the cost they have, to the point is making awakening units seems like nothing compared to some of the rearm units. I'll definitely create some documents and try to send them to show them that if you change their values more onto leader skill, it's going to be a lot better for the gauntlet in the future, I think. So definitely send them some details. I don't know if they will listen, of course, but I'll try to spam it to not to extend level, but to reasonable level. So, but there's that for the rearm units. Lastly, they're talking about some of the balance changes as well for the next week, and some of the units are getting buffed. First thing is Aran Joshun. His counter range is going to get a little bit bigger, as well as able to hit better, so it's going to have a better range and a bit farther range. And his special skills, as well as enhanced attack, as well as ultimates, will hit air as well. This is very strong change for both PvE and PvP. I think he should be able to melt pretty much all units in that sense. So I think this is going to be another really OP units for gauntlets. Right now he is still pretty good. He's still pretty good units, but very strong sniper units are kind of holding against him. So I don't know how things will turn out. I kind of feel like they should just not really go that far. I feel like they should just reduce his like attack range, then give the counter ability for all the attacks. Then I think it'll be a lot better, or like a lower the damage to aerial units so they won't just get one-shotted by the thing. But I think he's counter hitting the aerial units is also a pretty good idea, because I think Iseon and Horizon is very strong aerial units, and in this way I think Shun is able to kind of counter those two units pretty well if it's done correctly. So I think they should just kind of lower the damage to aerial units, or maybe doing like full damage to awakening units but less damage to regular units or ground units. I think if they make it kind of like that, something like that, I'm just keep saying a lot of things, but if they go down to that route, I think it's going to be a lot more reasonable to kind of deal with Joshun after he gets buffed. Jake is still a controversy. I think he definitely has potential right now, especially with all his mechanics out in the field, and he's getting a lot of buff. Now all his attacks will kind of hit aerial units as well, so he's like a field damage and such will attack aerial units, his special attacks and such, as well as his passive attack that he does with his basic attack. Every 4 attack changes to every 3 attacks, so it'll be easier to refresh his shield as well, so that's very strong changes. And his stun time will go additional 1 second, along with some of the debuff he does with the ultimate skill. It will trigger faster, and not to mention debuff will extend it to 2 additional seconds. So Jake, I think it should be very strong units now. To the level, I think he should be very good against the mechanic units. I don't think Evolve 1 or Horizon really have anything to do against Jake now. I think if Jake comes out on the field, he'll probably stun Horizon like nothing and able to counter Horizon easy now. So we'll see how things will turn out, but Jake is probably going to be a king of the gauntlet after this buff. So we'll see how things will turn out, but I think this is the second buff he's getting, and after this buff, I think he's just going to be crazy good in both PvE and PvP against mechanic units. And lastly, there are a couple units they are talking about within this balanced list. They are planning to buff certain units. So first unit they're considering is Jizu. She's been out for a very long time, and people kind of forget she exists. She was the first awakening unit to get on the up list, and people still kind of didn't really use her that well. So I think they'll try to buff her to make a lot of range units kind of do debuff, because she has this like attack speed debuff and such. So I think when she's out in the field, it's going to be really hard to utilize sniper or ranger units or even supporter units. I think that's going to be her thing when she gets buffed. I'm assuming, yeah, so I'm assuming they're going to increase her debuff aspects even more within gauntlets. Draco is another SSR character I really like. She just hooks to the enemies and speed through the enemies' lines and kind of attack them really close. So I think they're probably going to enhance that to aim their backline so you can't just camp behind. I think that's the main usage of Draco. So I think if they buff her right, she should be pretty good and able to kind of snipe the back units behind the defender as well, I think. and they're buffing 3 additional sniper units. They're buffing Jaina Corpel, they're also buffing Shanna, as well as buffing Lucy. So these sniper units are going to be much better probably after getting buffed. And I'm assuming they're buffing all the snipers to kind of deal with the striker units. Like I said, Arhan Joshun is getting buffed, which is going to be pretty huge. And 2 strong rearm units already exist, like Orca as well as Essarosa. If everything goes right, I think if they buff these sniper units right, they can kind of get away with not really nerfing the, let's say, Orca or some of the sniper units. So we'll see how things will turn out. That is pretty much it for this kind of balance related thing. And the last thing is they're showing us a sneak peek of the new rearm units, Mia. So it's going to be another sniper units because they say it's going to enhance her current existing ability and cut down on her downside. So another sniper units, so they're pushing sniper units pretty hard, as you can see from this kind of balance patches, trying to make it so sniper units are going to be aiming down on all the striker units, like Arhan Joshun, who's about to get buffed and be really good, Orca as well as Essarosa. So we'll see how things will go, but it's better than nothing. I think it's not perfect, and they mentioned in this balance patch that balance will never be perfect, and a lot of players probably agree that balance will never be perfect. There is no such thing as perfect balance game. There really isn't. I think what people call perfect as the balance goes is probably Summoner's words from the players I heard, because they do constant balance patches. I mean, a lot of people get salty over it apparently, because it's really hard to get units in that game as well, but they do tons of balance patches after each season. If the units are picked too much, they're gonna nerf it. It's going to cause a lot of problem in gacha games, of course, but they do it. I'm not saying let's follow Summoner's war routes, because I'm not a huge fan of like the nerf train. When you nerf certain units and buff some other units, the next OP unit is going to fill the spots, and you're going to nerf it again, then goes back and forth. The one positive thing I think Counterside has, and it's been working pretty well most of the time, except certain character, is the ban list system. So you can't just spam the same setup every single week and expect to win. Certain character kind of evades that loophole, like King. Even with the 2 ban, it was pretty useful. Not as much right now. Tower Shout-In is one of them, and Evolve never really got banned because not a lot of people uses it much as a counter units. Instead of straight up nerfing the units, I think they should consider making kind of ban lists more stronger, force players to different tactics every single week with the units that's available. I think they should definitely get more benefits to the up as well as more downside with the ban. But enough for a balance talk. It's going to get too long if I keep continuing to talk about it. I love talking about this game, and I would like to discuss more with the balance thing in the future. It'll be pretty cool if I can communicate with other streamers or other YouTubers, like a Bullet. I think I would love to sit down and have a chat with him to talk about the balance issue. I think it would be pretty fun to talk about it. Like he posts a lot of PvP stuff. I always lurk around. I like all his videos and just watch it through. It's pretty fun. Like the way he catches Goliath was pretty fun and refreshing to watch. But anyways, that's about it for this video. I'll stop myself here. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. It's Jake. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.